Good morning.
Good morning.
We'd like to begin our time together this morning with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are gathered on native space and in the traditional homelands of the Massachusetts tribe. The Massachusetts have been a part of the place we now call the Boston Common for thousands of years. Their lives and their legacy are part of the Common, and their stories are recorded in the ground from the 1,000-year-old pottery shards found right here by the Parkman Bandstand to the 7,000-year-old spear point found under the Frog Pond to the ancient fish weirs of Back Bay. They are still here. Despite the arrival of colonists who saw this land, these resources, and these people as commodities, they are still the holders of Boston. I invite you to consider the legacy of colonialism and the ways it has impacted people across the world and continues to impact people today. The stories lost, the memories forgotten, but also the persistence of people in the face of genocide and oppression, and the fundamental humanity of all. I invite us to take a moment of remembrance and recognition. We are here in the Boston Common, a historic park, a central gathering place for our city, often referred to as the People's Park. Since its official establishment in 1634, the Common has been central to Boston's civic life and has met all of the demands of societal and changes and pressures. This park is not only a historic landmark in the physical sense, but it also has a rich history dating back, as we talked about, to the time when Boston was still referred to as the Shawmut Peninsula. And indigenous people lived and moved between these lands when they used to have to get in a boat to get to Roxbury. So the history of the people of Boston and this park have grown together. It has transitioned from a utilitarian landscape where people brought their cows to now a leisure park and one that supports a lot of civic activities and social movements. I don't know how many protests and rallies I have been to at this one park stand throughout my lifetime. But the Common has acted as a critical space. There were Civil War recruitment booths out here on the Common in the 1860s, and protests against the Vietnam War, and rallies for civil rights, all during the 1900s. And there have been renewed racial, civic, and climate justice movements that have made this park their rallying space all throughout the past 20+ years. And as we prepare for the impacts of climate change, it is worth noting that much of this downtown area has a little bit of a heat bubble, and the Boston Common actually acts as a cooling space for lots of downtown. And so this land serves so many purposes, supports us in so many ways, and is held high in the esteem and in the hearts of Bostonians. Not just for our city, but it also serves as a national landmark and a platform for many parts of the shifting ideas and conversations in the American consciousness. From our monument to the 54th Regiment, right across from the State House, which was a groundbreaking monument when it opened, to the fact that we are looking to invite our newest monument, the Embrace, which is counting down the days till Martin Luther King Jr. weekend when we will celebrate the opening. This park is an amazing gem in Boston and for the world. And so, here we are at the intersection of commonality and contestation. The two things that this park has held together, that which we share and those places where we are trying to shift. And so we will be talking about the future plans for this, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't take a moment to encourage you. We have a 45-day comment period on this new Boston Common Master Plan, and so we're asking every Bostonian, go ahead and take a look at it. Pay attention to what we're trying to do. Join in the conversation about how we continue and build on the legacy of this park to make it particularly even more accessible than it's ever been. Accessible physically for those with challenges in terms of movement, and accessible in that everyone continues to see it as a place where they can come and gather. I want to take a quick moment to thank our amazing Boston Parks and Recreation team, and particularly Nathan Fraser. Where are you, Nathan? All right. And Liza Meyer. I know I saw Liza here. Liza, can you raise your hand? Right there. They were instrumental in the master planning process, and if any of you have ever been part of that, you know that Bostonians never lack for opinions. And so it is a challenging thing, but an important thing to help harmonize and bring those all together into something that serves us all. So, with no further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to one of our biggest park champions, our own Mayor Michelle Wu.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on the cusp of making history in a way that is connected to the legacy of this space and the needs of our community today and the potential and possibilities to come in the future. The very name of this space embodies how I think about our city and how we have carved a path through hundreds of years together. Boston Common is truly a place that is meant to bring us together, that shifted the way this country thought about who would benefit from green spaces and open lands, and through the stewardship of those who put in the time and resources, not only thinking about the needs of each generation, but thinking about those who didn't yet have a voice at all. Those of us in the future who had yet to set foot on this earth are benefiting from the decisions and the stewardship and the legacy from hundreds of years ago. And so what has happened already is already truly momentous, that under the leadership of Liz and the Friends, under the stewardship and leadership of Chief Reverend Mariama White-Hammond and our Commissioner Woods and the whole Parks team, thinking ahead about what could happen here if we really allowed ourselves to dream. And what we have come up with, what the team has presented as a first 300-some page draft, is really weaving together all of the possibilities in every nook and cranny of this space. So if you take a spin through that report, the plan will show that they have thought about and woven together the ideas from residents around things that should apply across the entire common. How do we get around? How do we enter? What should the spaces and entrances actually feel like and look like so everyone sees this as their home and their space? And then how do we truly make our signature parts within this space connect, come together, and become even more inclusive? The monuments, as the chief mentioned, including one we are very, very excited to unveil in just a couple months, and the places for recreation. When you're coming just to, whether it's on a day when schools are closed and as a mom you're tearing out your hair trying to think of what to do, just hypothetically, and find somewhere that the kids you know will delight in, whether you are a resident of this city or in this region who just needs to center yourself on a walk and take in the fresh air, the cool temperatures, and the sense of spirit and legacy that is represented here, or whether you are an avid horticulturist and a lover of trees and want to be here to admire all that has gone into preserving and maintaining the incredible specimens that we can find taken care of throughout this park. This is not only a critical space for us to be together, this is a space for protection, an important part of our green infrastructure and resiliency across the city. And so I am so excited that all of the various pieces that we think about when we're trying to connect parks to our residents in every single neighborhood are really flowing throughout this vision and this plan. So my job is just to say we're going to keep this going. We're going to get as many comments as possible in this period, which closes, is it November 30th? So comments can still be added if you take a spin through either the executive summary on the website, which is a little shorter, 19 pages, or the full report. Please send your thoughts in, because this is going to be a work in progress also. While this is a comprehensive vision that really shows what this space could be for the next generations, we do have to make some choices around prioritization, where we start, and how any changes that we might want to make as well. So this comment period is very, very important. We invite everyone to submit your feedback and really make sure that this park represents not just any single neighborhood or group of downtown neighborhoods connection, but truly a property and a home for the entire city to be reflected here. So thank you so much, and I'm going to pass it on to our incredible Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, Ryan Woods.
Good morning, everyone. We're pleased to finally be able to share this Boston Common Master Plan, a document that was years in the making, thanks to our partnership with the Friends of the Public Garden. Through these recommendations outlined in this plan, the park's natural, historic, cultural, and visual character will be strengthened and preserved for both today's users and future generations. Beginning in June of 2019, we reached out to hear voices of park users and stakeholders with a survey that received 4,500 responses, along with a series of pop-up exhibits deployed in the park and across the city in several open houses, to gather input that was incorporated in our guiding principles, goals, objectives, and recommendations. The attractions and amenities that you see on the Common today are a patchwork of projects and improvements dating back through this park's history. This master plan is intended to bridge those gaps and provide a comprehensive framework for changes that build upon what already makes this renowned public space successful, paving the way toward a sustainable and resilient future for Boston Common. Park users will find improvements throughout the park with increased flexibility, better use of space, new features, and enhanced visitor orientation and interpretation. These proposals act as a feasibility study describing what is possible in each area of the Common. As projects are implemented, the designs will be refined based on input from the public and stakeholders. More specifically, an expanded tadpole playground will introduce more diverse and accessible play equipment that serves a wider range of ages and abilities. Under these recommendations, the playground's footprint would increase from roughly 5,500 square feet to about 15,000 square feet. Iconic in its own right, the Frog Pond should be fully renovated to include a new pavilion, a splash pad, and an improved wading pool with accessible entries and water features. Upgraded infrastructure such as electrical, improved Wi-Fi, and pond refrigeration for multi-season events and flexible programming will improve efficiency and functionality. An expansion of the Visitor Information Center will offer additional much-needed restrooms in this area of the Common that we hear about all the time. The interior space could offer additional vending opportunities, and a larger space to provide retail and offer additional information. Upgrading the Parkman Bandstand will include adding a fully accessible, architecturally appropriate ramp, pathway improvements, tree plantings, and new seating options are recommended. In addition, the creation of an accessible entrance along Beacon Street by the Shaw 54th Regiment Memorial is an early priority of the plan. As we approach Charles Street, a reimagined athletics complex with a ball field and multi-use field overlay will support a wider range of athletic programming. The entire area will benefit by relocating the tennis courts in a more logical and protected spot, allowing current space to be repurposed for an appropriately sized enclosed dog recreation area between the new courts and the athletic fields. In addition, 2 new basketball courts adjacent to the Parkman Bandstand are proposed. As you look through the plan, imagine a renewed Boston Common with more plantings and seating, improved infrastructure, and so much more. a popular and historic green space that can show how a landmark urban park can anticipate and support the needs of its users. In doing so, Boston Common can set a precedent for what it means to reinvest in and celebrate our nation's most treasured places. It's now my pleasure to introduce our partner who's worked on this for more than 4 years, and I think we're on calls pretty much daily now, or definitely a few times a week. She is our friend, she is our ally. Please welcome the President of the Friends of the Public Garden, Liz Visa.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Well, it is thrilling to be here. As Ryan said, it's been a long time in coming. Many of us have worked for many hours and many weeks and months through the pandemic. Many of you have come to public meetings when it was in person and then come to public meetings virtually. It's been our joy to have a partner that is so dedicated to the work of this, making Boston Common the best version of itself and improving it for everybody. As Ryan said, I am president of Friends of the Public Garden, and for those of you who don't know, we care and renew in partnership for over 50 years with the city this park, the Boston Common, the Public Garden, and Commonwealth Avenue Mall. We are committed with the city to the goals of innovation and excellence in parks care, as well as the joy and belonging in how people experience parks. As the mayor so eloquently said, and the chief reiterated, this park needs to belong to everybody. It does, and people need to know that it belongs to each and every one of them, because this park is many things to many people. It is a neighborhood park for almost 60,000 people. But beyond that, it's an international tourist destination. It is the center stage of our civic life, and it's been that for generations, where we do come to celebrate, to protest, to play, to enjoy recreational activities, to enjoy special events, and to come to renew ourselves. But because of that great love, 7 million people a year come to this park. The infrastructure is tired and worn and deteriorated. What we don't want to hear in the future, which we do hear sometimes today, is that the public garden is so beautiful when you cross Charles Street, I don't know about the Common. That needs to change. It's going to change today with our commitment to this amazing plan and to the work of increasing our commitment, our investment, and the beauty and the functionality of this important park. It will have, his plan has a unified vision for the evolving needs of the people and also of the park. So we listened to the people, not only those who filled out the survey, but those who came to 13 pop-ups around the city. So we got 10,000 voices. And many people had many opinions about this park because people own this park, not just the neighborhood, but they own it throughout the city of Boston. We also listened to the park. We listened to the trees. We listened to the lawns. We listened to the soils. So what we do in the future needs to be supportive to the people using it and supportive and sustainable to this place. And as you've heard, it is central to mitigate climate change. It is a green lung for our city. It is a place of oasis and repose in the middle of a very busy and stressful urban environment that we are all living in. So we need to make sure that we claim that and protect that, as well as doing what we can to increase the ability for it to be used and loved by so many people. We do have a number of proposals. You've heard some from Ryan, but making those destinations that you have now even better. Being able to come up to the Parkman Bandstand if you're in a wheelchair. Being able to enjoy the frog pond, not only having a better and refurbished skating rink, but having a second floor on that building and a better restaurant and a place to come and enjoy a glass of wine and beer at the end of the day. We want this park to be used in all seasons and at all times. As you heard, we have this very bold and exciting new addition, the 1965 Freedom Plaza and the Embrace. And that will be a very wonderful addition and will bring more people to this park. There'll be a whole population of people who don't necessarily see themselves in this park. We want them, and we hope that they will see themselves when that comes online. And then how do we connect those spaces? How do we let people know what they have to find when they come? Over 40,000 people a day, on any given day, come into and through the Boston Common. Just think about that. The park has always been both a destination and a crossroads, but we want to capture more of those people and encourage them. You heard that we are going to be improving the visitor center. We're also creating a plaza behind the visitor center to encourage people into a parkside space to enjoy and sit and love this park and see and be seen. We also are going to be creating a whole signage system so that you know what you can find, where you can find it, and some more interpretation. You heard the chief talk about the thousands of years of history in this park. We want to be doing a better job at interpreting that, whether you find out in the visitor center or in a QR code on a sign. This is an ability. We will be creating a landmark loop with subtle pavement markings connecting the Frog Pond and the Parkman Bandstand and the Embrace and Brewer Plaza through signage as well as markings on the paths. It is a place also to improve the entrances and make this place be a more welcoming place to come and know again that you can find this beautiful park. And some of that infrastructure, the trees, when the colonists arrived, there was one tree here, the great elm. And when the cows were banished in 1830, the concept of this park changed from a working landscape to a recreational landscape, more in the mode of what 19th century people thought parks should be. Beautiful, recreational. So trees were planted to line paths. This whole area where we are was a forest of elm trees. We lost just about all of those elm trees to Dutch elm disease. So there are gaps in the tree canopy, and we want to work to fill those gaps in, as well as do that hard. You don't see this thing, but we could bury millions of dollars in the infrastructure of this park, the drainage, the curbs, the paths. So we really want to own that important work and do it as well as the more exciting and transformational work of creating and improving the spaces that you come when you want to enjoy yourself here. Parks need people, and people need parks. A shared space like the Boston Common is a critical place for community, for civic life, for respite, and for joy in our city, and it deserves continued investment and commitment to it. Together, we can not only bring this plan to life, but turn its vision into a reality to be experienced by people of Boston and visitors from around the state, the nation, and the world for years to come. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. Thank you for joining us to celebrate the release of this plan, and we look for your support in the years ahead. And with that, it is my pleasure to invite back Chief White Hammond for closing remarks.
So again, we want to thank you all for being here. And in case you didn't hear from every single one of us, please lean in, take a moment. You don't have to read all 300 pages. We'd be excited if you just go on, look at some of the pictures, see some of the vision, look at the basic ideas, and maybe the frog pond is your thing, so lean in on that. But we really would like people to engage with this plan, share their thoughts, and then join us in the long-term work to realize that vision as we do that over the next few years. So we thank you all for coming out, and we'll now invite the mayor. I think there's some time for question about this, and we suspect about some other things. But we do want to just take a moment to lift up, acknowledge, and note that she is in our prayers. Some of you may have heard there was an attack in Franklin Park last night of someone who is a powerful and important community activist, and we are keeping her in our prayers and have all faith that she will pull through. So with that, I hand it over to the mayor.
Any questions about the common first?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Miss Lattimore Merrill.
Hi, Miss Lattimore.
I've been in Massachusetts for 42 years, and I've seen a lot of history. I really feel that you're doing a great job. I like the ideas. I'm 65. I'm from Mississippi, and I was so happy that they're doing a little statue for my kids. My thing is, what about the safety of the people that come to the park, even though they having everything? I think it's a great idea. I can't believe it, but I'm very proud of you, Mayor Wu, and I wanted to see you. And you made history.
Thank you, Miss Lattimore.
Okay?
Thank you
what
so
I wanna
much
know
for.
about the safety.
Yep, absolutely. That is paramount, and we know that there are many things that go into that. We have been working on lighting and working hand in hand with the Friends over many, many years to ensure that safety is the baseline for everyone's experience here and in our parks around the city. Part of that is also around knowing where you're trying to go and how to get there within the park. So having signage that will be accessible, and you can always get a sense of which way, where to head to get to this part of the park or that part. Another part of safety is ensuring that all parts of the park are being well used and loved. And so by adding some more of the recreational spaces, by changing around where the events are taking place so that everything fits together, we hope to see even more people using the park in a way that fits with the care and maintenance of it. The entranceways as well are going to be a key part of visibility and being in and out of the park. But and of course, everything we do is hand in hand in partnership with our first responders, our public safety officials. Boston Police always has a plan on hand for the spaces that are that we're lucky to have in our city. Any other thoughts on safety?
So one other thing that's not in the plan, but I also think is a exciting development, is that our park rangers are also out here in the space, and we have traditionally had challenges filling all of those roles, but we've been doing a lot of specific work to grow the number of park rangers so they can be not just here in the Boston Common, but all throughout the necklace and throughout our park system. So I got the honor about a month ago to go to the graduation where we had 5 new park rangers join, and I think that that's going to make a big difference in terms of having a physical presence too.
That's beautiful.
Is there a timeline for completion? What we're looking at?
So the first step was the plan, and then part of what we'll look at those comments is to figure out how do we track what people are sort of lifting up most. And it'll be over a series of capital budgets that will get the things done, because there's a lot of exciting and important changes. For instance, the frog pond, we know that is a priority because our cooling system is no longer working. So there's some things where there are pieces that are currently not functioning, and we're going to try to prioritize those. And then there's a lot of spaces where we'll pay attention to what is the public really clamoring for, and then how do we help to figure out what we sequence over the next 5 to 7 years.
What timeline on when it would start?
So it is our plan to put our first project in for this year's. We begin our capital budget planning in December, and so as you notice, we're releasing this, and then we'll also be releasing the Franklin Park Master Plan. And between those two things, that helps us really decide what we're prioritizing in the Parks Department for the capital budget as soon as next year, and then the years to come after that.
What is the overall projected cost?
That is a good question. I'm not sure that we've done cost estimates on everything. This is mostly sort of saying what people have said they want and how we fit all of those things in, and that's actually part of the capital planning process, is that we'll have to then see what people prioritize, then ask what is it going to cost to do those things, and then submit those into our capital budget plan.
But is there sort of a ballpark? Yeah.
During the community process, we are going to have to phase this. So once we hear what people want to see in phase 1, we then have to get all quotes for everything in phase 1. So it's always going to be a moving target, obviously, with prices as well. So we're going to start with what is in phase 1. Once we determine that, we're going to get price estimates on each phase. I mean, it could be over $200 million to do everything as proposed throughout years. However, it's all what happens in the community process as we see what people want in each phase to go through.
Private
money, or are you also looking for private donations?
We are always looking for additional philanthropic dollars. We also have money from the sale of the Winthrop Square Garage that will help kick us off. We have $23 million in capital money. So for once, we're excited. We have a plan with money behind it to hit the ground running.
Is that 200 like a good ballpark, or is that just sort of a hypothetical number?
I mean, until we cost it out, we can't give you a solid number until we've actually had someone sit down and do the numbers. So I think it is realistic given the number of things that people are wanting to see, and what we know about what it takes to do just the recreation side of things. But it is very much a ballpark. It is not meant for you to go to press with it as that's a reliable number.
So you guys don't know how much this is going to cost? So you guys don't know how much this is going to cost?
No.
I'll say something on, and I know Liz might have other ideas, but on this point, part of the shift that we want to see in the city is to encourage everyone in the city to dream and to really be specific about what we hope for to become possible. Because we've often had a different way, whether it is in funding our school buildings or the public transportation or other spaces where we say, okay, we think we can come up with $5 million. How do we least painfully split that between a project or two here or there? And we've never had that comprehensive conversation about, well, where are we actually trying to go, and how do we then try to pull every piece to fit it together. Over the weekend, on Indigenous Peoples Day, we cut the ribbon for the Huntington Theater, which it's the oldest nonprofit playhouse in America, a civic space for arts and culture, and they had been at risk of needing to shut down and move altogether. And the first estimates they were told were, you probably could maybe only fundraise $30 million. And at that, it wouldn't have been possible. And so they really put aside those estimates and that cost constraint, even though that is a core part of how we have to get things done, determined what they needed to do, and then found a way. So they have already raised $100 million for that space and are continuing to build for a civic space next to it. That is the kind of ethos and approach that we want to see. We're not going to be able to shake these trees and have dollar bills come down from them, but it is important to say, here's where we want to head, so we know how to put those steps in the right order as quickly as possible, and we will be leaning on and pushing for all of our partners in every sector to help with those efforts. Liz, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think it's been well said. You know, we looked at costs a couple of years ago, and you know that the world is very different than it was a couple of years ago. So I don't think that that's an estimate that's going to be reliable for us today. But I think, Mary, you answered it beautifully. And others, you know, we are going to be looking at the first phase, the high priority, and we will be giving estimates. But estimates, as you know, are estimates for this year, and they're not for years to come. It will definitely be over $100 million. Whether it's 200, one will find out. But it's definitely going to be over 100.
Last question here.
Excuse me. You have initiated some great new programs in the city, including the urban forest program, which will, I assume, benefit the common as well as the other historic parks. But you've initiated a great plan for reactivating downtown. How do you see that affect the revitalization of downtown, collaborating and supporting the common?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. How do our efforts around climate and especially in the green spaces fit together with efforts to get our economy back going and revitalizing downtown? In fact, it is one and the same. These days, people can make every choice about where they are physically, when a lot of folks now can exercise flexibility in how they work, where they're working from, where they live, to be able to work at those jobs. You're no longer tied in a lot of ways to the same spaces and constraints. And as cities across the country are sometimes struggling to attract and retain residents because of housing costs, because of job markets, we want to be a city that says we can be home to everyone. And that means not only going after the economic vitality to support that, but being a city where people want to live, where people want to spend their time. And so a draw like this, where you can work in one of our job centers and walk or hop on the subway or bus to get to a space where you can eat your lunch or walk around in one of the most gorgeous spaces in America, that is a huge, huge benefit to us from a tourism industry perspective, from a quality of life perspective, and from an economic perspective.
So restrooms have been proposed. Any idea on what department in the city would be the ones to service those?
Sure, so it would be under the Parks Department's care. So whether it's in-house or contracted out, but it would be under the Parks Department. And we're looking at it in several places in the Common, not just one. So we know it's an amenity people need, whether they going on the swan boats and coming over, whether at the Frog Pond or just walking through. It's a public necessity here in the Common, and it's time that we implement them.
And
We'll take any other questions off to the side. Thanks, guys.
I'll just one final comment before we shift, and this job is a joy every day, but it's also many different hats to wear in all moments, and so I'm kind of living in this moment with the excitement of what's to come here, but also knowing that in one of our other signature green spaces in the city last night, I'm disgusted and angry to know that an elder in our community had to fear for her safety going about her daily routine, walking her dog. And so I want to thank our emergency responders for very quick action to ensure that the healthcare and treatment was so quickly accessed, and Boston Police, who are pursuing a very, very active investigation. I have had the chance to connect with this patient, who is an inspiration in every way, and we ask the public for your help. If you have any information about what transpired last night, we need your help in sharing that with the Boston Police.